Hi, fans of lyric trumpet music. We're back in the Bordogni etudes. This is number 44. Now, I haven't done these for quite a while. Please pardon me, I'm suffering from a cold or RSV or COVID or something. But you don't have to worry, I can't infect you from here. But if I clear my throat or sneeze or my nose drips while I'm playing or whatever, just ignore that. Try and stay involved in the music. That's what I'm going to be trying to do. Now we're getting to the point in these vocalises, vocal exercises, where they're getting longer. So this one is about 1.5 pages, and there's another one coming up that's about 2 pages. And that presents some issues. But as I play through, I want to try and get into the musical aspects of it and how striving for more musicality can help your trumpet playing tremendously. And also people that play other instruments, wind instrument players and especially string instrument players will enjoy playing with you more when you bring a higher level of basic musicianship to your playing. So I'm going to go ahead and try this now, and if I stop because I cough or something, it is what it is. But I'm going to see if I can get through it. And all I'm asking you to do is just listen for ingredients, listen for characteristics, listen for aspects of what you hear that apply to G. What could I do with my playing in order to get that sound, get that musical effect? Okay. Having a little trouble breathing today, and I noticed that I kind of got myself in trouble as I went through. We'll get to that, because one thing you can really do to help yourself is plan your breathing. Most of us don't, and when we feel that feeling like, oh, got to take a breath, sometimes it's too late. Sometimes there's not a good place to take a breath. So the better job you can do of coordinating your breaths with the natural feeling of space and lift in the music, the better off you are. Now, something I notice all the time in my students is they might breathe, what you might say, breathe rhythmically. Now, that's not wrong in and of itself. But when it becomes kind of an unconscious habit, it can be a problem, especially when people are watching you play. So I don't know how well I did with that, but I'm going to try it at the beginning. Now, you can see if you've got the music in front of you, you get a 16th rest, and then 5 16th notes following in this 3/8 feeling of 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, in like a waltz. And there are a couple issues with that, but the one that has to do with breathing is that people tend to breathe at every rest because they're breathing rhythmically. So they go, so they might do something like this on the trumpet. And you can see that's rather complicated and it's really unnecessary. So something you definitely want to practice is notice what you're doing with your breathing. Be more aware of it, be more aware of doing what is very, very natural. So it's not very natural, it's kind of bumpy. And even though it's great to practice it to be able to do that, that's another discussion, because actually getting good at doing that without disturbing the embouchure, without disturbing your support, without disturbing your musical awareness is a great thing to practice. But most of the time it's not necessary. And let's face it, when we're performing, we want to do the best job possible. So we don't want to make it more complicated for ourselves. In our practice, in order to stretch our abilities, we might want to make it more complicated or difficult for ourselves. So, you know, there are different times and different things to do. Now, I'm going to go ahead and do it again, and this time I'm going to breathe according to the phrase, or at least try to do that. Actually, I don't know what I'm going to do, and that's what I just said. I need to make a plan, but let's see. How do you plan? You see what works better. So it depends on how much breath I take at the beginning. So I actually only need to breathe about every 8 bars, and even then I don't need to take much air. So many of us were trained, I was certainly trained, to always maximum breathe. So at the beginning I get a big stretch as if I were going to play tuba. And there are two schools of thought on that. Some people say you should always do that, and there are reasons for that. That's more of a technical question, which we'll have to get into later, because there are pluses and minuses to everything that we do. We want to find out what's appropriate and what's most helpful for us to be able to make music and stay comfortable. So other people will say not maximum breath. What you should be doing is you breathe through the phrase. So you only take in as much air as you need. And that's true, that helps you stay more relaxed, but then you don't have the natural ease of release of that airflow. In the back of your mind, you're always worried about running out of air, and you might start squeezing it a little bit or getting tight because you can feel that you're losing air. So what I do is I practice at both extremes and everything in between. So I might take a maximum breath. I'm going to take a maximum breath and play the next section. So what I did is I took a maximum breath, played 4 bars, then I took another breath on top of that. So now I might be doing what some players and teachers call stacking air. I was. Then I played the next 4 bars easily. But what you notice is I have a lot of reserve capacity of airflow. And airflow is the main ingredient. Now, if we start holding on to the air, we're in trouble. Whether we're pushing hard and holding on, or whether we're releasing and trying to hold it on to control it, we're in trouble. That's a technical issue. We have to get into that at another time, but you can discover these things for yourself if you just become aware of them. So that breathing issue, managing your breath, I call it breath management, which is how much am I going to breathe and when am I planning to breathe, and then practice all different ways so that you're flexible. You don't get locked into doing it one way. Just in case you forget to take a breath, or you don't get a good breath, or whatever it is, you don't feel like, oh no, I'm in trouble. Now, see, if you do that, then you're not looking to where you're going next, and you've just gone out of the music. So it's important to do whatever you can to stay in the music. What we're actually trying to do is let these things become instinctive, but good instincts happen through good training. So there it is. What are some other issues with this? I notice this all the time, And it's something that trained players have dealt with and are aware of as a problem and generally it's not an issue in their playing. Especially trained ensemble players like orchestral players or people that play in any kind of ensemble. Soloists have to also be trained, and good musicians of all kinds are going to do this well. But if you have some room to grow, I think you'll know what I'm talking about. There's a psychological tendency when we get into that repeated pattern. I'm going to play the same pattern later on where it changes a little bit. And the tendency is to actually rest on the 16th rest. And if you do that, you're always going to be losing time. So when you're playing in a band, let's say, and there's rhythm, you'll notice that and you'll automatically correct for it. When you're playing a solo by yourself, you may not notice it. So working with a metronome can be helpful. Now I'm going to put a metronome on. Now if we want to play it literally, I'm going to leave that metronome on a little bit when I'm playing. If you want to play it literally, then you have to make sure that the flow of those 16th notes is absolutely even. Now that may not be musically as expressive, it might not have much character to it, but it shows a good deal of control. So let's start with a control and then see what you can do. So if I do this, now some very interesting things happened, and I don't know if you'll actually notice it, but I noticed it. When I got to the more exciting part of the music, I started to speed up a little bit. So when I was anticipating going above the staff, I just pushed a little bit ahead, so I didn't stay in that groove. And there's nothing wrong with that if you know you're doing it, and you're doing it on purpose for a musical an effect of, oh, it's getting more exciting here. Now I'm letting it move ahead. But see, I was playing it very metronomically. Now, you need to really watch this carefully in your playing, because most people will play something like, and it's hard for me to do this because I've trained myself not to, but so that's not a 16th rest. That's longer than a 16th rest. And if you're feeling the beat in one, you'll immediately recognize that. So when you listen to yourself as you practice, especially when you listen to your recordings, make sure that that wheel that goes around, that feeling of one that you're carrying, that you're never pushing or pulling against that. Now, where do you break that rule? Well, the feeling of one stays, but I can actually do a rhythmic inflection through those notes. Now, this is a higher level of skill and a higher level of awareness, but I might start a little bit late. Let's see. Now, I don't know if you can tell that. It might be too subtle for you to hear, but I'm going 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, da 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 dee da, da 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 dee da, da da da. Not that much, just a little bit. This all starts with your awareness. When you hear other people doing this, when you hear accomplished players doing these little timing things, and it also starts with your ability to just do it absolutely rhythmically pure with no inflection at all. It's kind of like young jazz players and improvisational players will play a lot of notes, and because it's fun, and they like to go fast, and I understand that. I did it when I was young. The notes might not mean a whole lot, but they're fast. So this timing thing is a little bit like that. If you just wiggle your fingers, okay, it's exciting, and no, this is much more subtle. So, excuse me. This is what I want you to try and hear first, and then train it into your playing. But it starts with, can you play it evenly? Most people are a little bit late off the 16th notes. Some people know that they're late and will actually jump in early. It's not compensation, it's feeling the groove. When you feel the groove, then you can be a happy camper and enjoy your trumpet playing life. Okay, there are so many other things in here that I would really like to talk to you about. I'll mention one more and then let you go. Most of you will probably notice when you're playing closer intervals and you're in the staff, it feels pretty comfortable. Just like the opening, and then when I reiterated the opening, what it says a tempo comes back to the A material. So when it changes in the recapitulation, you might say, well, that's the same material from the beginning, and then it changes from that point. And you can start to see what happens in terms of the skill requirement, because you start to go above the staff and the intervals start getting larger. Now, if any of you has tried to play this, you may have noticed exactly this issue, that instead of sounding easy, it sounds a little bit labored, or it feels a little bit like you're struggling, or that you're losing your balance, or that you have to kind of grip in order to maintain control. And people with good ears can hear that. So if you're interested in playing competitively, taking an orchestral audition, for example, you want to, even if you're not comfortable, that's okay. Nobody should hear that you're not comfortable. And nobody should hear that you're losing the quality of what you're doing. So I'm going to play that part of that section and give you an idea of the spots, and I think you know where they are already. Larger intervals, and when you go above the staff. See, I chipped the note because I'm trying a little bit too hard. So as I'm working down the intervals, my body starts to go like, oh yeah, this is easy. And all of a sudden he throws you back to the top of the staff with a large interval. Now these are singing exercises, and it's the same issue with singers. If you're not supporting properly, you're going to be squeezing that with your throat, right? And it won't sound particularly good, as I very aptly demonstrated. What I just did is to test myself to see if I'm ready to go from the low D sharp up to the G sharp on top of the staff in a beautiful liquid slur. If I can do that, then if I don't get too excited and I trust it, then I should be able to just blow the line regardless of how angular it gets or how far it goes above the staff. So this is a basic principle, physical principle on the trumpet, and also with the voice. So Mr. Bordogni, at the end, he has you do some interesting things. I'll just finish off the piece and do it more like a singer, maybe with the rhythm a little bit looser. He puts piano, at least in this edition. I'm not sure of the original Bordogni edition. I'll have to look it up. But he puts piano crescendo for 4 bars, and then piano crescendo for another 4 bars up to forte. And the forte is on an A on top of the staff, and that's the highest note that you've played in the entire piece. So you get comfortable playing in the middle register, and all of a sudden, right at the end, when you may be a little bit fatigued, or like me, maybe you're losing your concentration a little bit, he throws this curve at you. And the idea is, see the curve when you're driving before you get there, and let yourself naturally anticipate that so you're ready to just flow through the curve. That's the feeling here. Let me see if I can get the ending. And I'll show you a little technique that I use a lot in order to practice this. So you can hear how I was just sustaining that top note. And when I do that, if I this always comes to mind. There's a question that God asks Adam in the garden. Adam has trusted his own judgment instead of trusting God's word, God's command. And he knows that something is seriously wrong. And God shows up and he says, "Where are you, Adam?" Of course, we know that God knew where Adam was. But he wanted Adam to think, yeah, where am I? And so I call it, where am I? So when I sustain that note, am I ready to move anywhere on the horn? Am I comfortable? Do I want to live in that neighborhood? Do I like the sensation? Am I enjoying the quality of the sound? And when things are going by fast, moving very quickly, like these 16th notes are, it's hard to get that. So slow practice is good, but I find this very powerful to just put a fermata over the problem area and see, oh yeah, where am I? And then the other question is, how did I get here? That's a good self-reflective question for anyone to ask themselves at certain points in their lives. Yeah, how did I end up here? And it's based on the choices that we might make and the results of those choices and how we're anticipating what the results will be. So on the trumpet, then you can feel these things happening. And the more that your sensitivity is to feel what's happening before you get too far out of balance and to be able to let your body come back into balance, the easier you're going to be able to play, the better your endurance is going to be, the better your accuracy is going to be, and the easier it will be for you to make music because you won't be distracted by physically trying to play the trumpet. So this instrument is really frustrating. That's part of the process. But you're trying to get to the point where you say, yeah, I like this, I enjoy this, I want to live here. And I'll pay whatever the rent is, which is your work every day. So go do some of that work. I'll catch you later on. And thanks for joining me. Have a great day. Bye-bye.